Full name is Staff Sergeant Retired Jonathan James Vazquez, United States Army, 2006-2013. Where I'm from, I was born and raised in Miami, and then through a series of events made my way down to Texas. Here in Unlimited Thought, off of San Pedro and 410 here in San Antonio. Great group of people. Got plenty of books if you're looking for crystals, if you're looking for books, tarot cards, tapestries, you name it, these people's got it. Also have other practitioners as well. I'm the only person that does pineal activation here, whether it be through the light or through the breath. And then you got intuitive counselors, Bobby, Jean, Marie or Blue, and Miss Jenny Yamas. And then other energy workers. We also have Rick, who does Reiki and massage and reflexology. And we also got Olivia, she's also another intuitive counselor. These guys are all very, 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 very top-notch. So if you're looking for some change and looking for somebody to point you in the right direction, I highly encourage you show up to Unlimited Thought. Here at Unlimited Thought, I am the third eye guy. Also, pineal activation is like my specialty. So I have different modalities on how to turn it on. Pineal gland located in your head. It's where my fingers are intersected right here. It's in the core of the mind. It's shaped like a pine cone, a little bit bigger than a grain of rice. Through different kind of stimulation, whether it be reverberation or mental meditation or even a force-induced, like the light system that I use, can cause the pineal gland to in turn have a piezoelectric charge, therefore synthesizing a third neurotransmitter known as 5-MeO-dimethyltryptamine, and therefore giving some very, very profound experiences. Just waking people up, turning on their third eye. Right now in Unlimited Thought, I use two methods. I do one through the light and one through the breath. And when I say through the light, I use a hypnagogic light system known as the Ajna light. Through a flickering frequency of white light, can induce third eye activation. And also through the breath. That's a whole nother ballgame. People would consider superpowers, I call, and other practitioners as well, like Wim Hof. These are just regular human powers. It's just, these are abilities that everybody can have access to. It's not, one person has it and the other person doesn't. Everybody is capable of having these clair abilities activated that are pretty much dormant within the mind. When you see how vast and how the things that you experience daily are perceived, when you turn it on, things like, I'm going to quote Dr. Joe Dispenza, things like being a movie star or playing sports or making, something that it would all considered to be trivial at this point, because, you will realize that you are that and so much more. There's a number of things, as far as benefits wise, the sky's the limit. I mean, change your thoughts, change your words. Life is what you make it. Pineal gland originally, before Cottonwood Research Foundation in 2017, as well as University of Michigan in 2019, figured out that it produces another neurotransmitter called dimethyltryptamine, or DMT. Before that, it was in charge of, people believed and knew that it was in charge of your circadian rhythm or your sleep cycle, where when it's really dark and your eyes are not receiving any light, it begins to produce melatonin in turn. That's the sleep hormone. It starts putting you to sleep, and then when you start seeing light and you wake up, you see daytime, then again it starts producing serotonin, which is the wake me up, feel nice drug. When you activate the pineal gland through different modalities, then you, especially at will, you then in turn begin to have upgraded versions of melatonin released, which, antimicrobial, anti-aging, anti-cancer. Pretty much it's a very, very amazing, naturally produced hormone. Everybody has their own belief, everybody has their level of Gnosticism, whatever they want to call it. They think it's a woman, they think it's a man. I believe it's this superconsciousness, which is very real. And, just going along with my testimony alone, I know this thing exists, and I don't and I tell, I'll say on the camera, like I tell my clients or anybody that comes in here, nobody finds their way in my office or here in Unlimited Thought speaking to me, not a day late nor a day early, but when it wants you to. You name it. People with severe neurological disorders, people with, PTSD, people thinking that they have some kind of negative entity attached to them, people that normally would get turned away, seeking help just because of, they're homeless, or they, they haven't showered, or they're not, meeting a certain social expectation. Two modalities that can be used is through the breath. Two is through the light system, and both of which, no, you're not consuming any entheogens or plant medicines. Notice how I will never call them drugs, and I'll defend this till the day I die. Entheogens are put on this planet on purpose, and anybody who's trying to disprove or seek this, you're more than welcome to come give it a whirl, because there's more than one way to do it, and that is what I do. All I do is pretty much schedule the meetup between you and the big guy upstairs. And I say big guy, but in reality it's this big thing. Super ultra difficult because it's everything. It's everything and it's nothing all at the same time. It's formless. It's constantly changing. It's you, it's me, it's this door, it's the camera that's filming this, like everything. Being able to have an interaction with this being is where majority of the experiences that I help people get to is the big takeaway, is the fact that this is a legitimate interaction between you and something that is far greater than you. Even look at the word disease. The word disease is, you break it apart, and it's when people are in a mental state of dis-ease. When you can eliminate the mental dis-ease is when everything follows. It's not placebo, it's not idle affirmations. Like, these are things, that tie into all different types of esoteric teachings, where they speak about thought, heart, brain-heart coherence is what is known across all esoteric teachings, especially in even in the Bible. Talks about it. Mark 11:23 through 25. Believe that the mountain be cast in the sea. And we can go on other different, esoteric teachings, and they all teach and focus on the same thing, where you can genuinely believe in what it is you are affirmating. It happens. This is, not only is it talked about within other esoteric and religious teachings across the world, these are all things that are now being measured by science. The one thing that I took away from reading all these different religions and different esoteric teachings and stuff like that is that they all have the same triangulating message. Take away all the other stuff and the negative nonsense and the negative connotations that are written in these teachings, and just focus on the triangulating message. And the triangulating message is across the board: love, peace, unity, and forgiveness. That's all of them, every single one of them, to one degree or another, talk about love, peace, unity, and forgiveness. And that's the most important takeaway from all of them. This being, this consciousness, this thing will reach out to you in whichever modality and whichever thing you truly believe. It doesn't really matter. It's all the same entity. It's the same being, just perceived and, interpreted differently based on one's perception. So, a couple different ways. One was through a conscious meditation, and I watched a video on YouTube one day. This is like my initial entry into this stuff, which I understand I never believed in none of this. I also didn't believe that there's a life after death, much less some kind of a creator behind the scenes pulling all the strings and doing all this stuff. So long story short, I watch a video where it says astrophysicists have proven that astral projection is real. I remember laughing at it, and I remember saying out loud, one, what the hell is astral projection? And two, why are astrophysicists trying to prove this? So I went and researched, cited the data, The data actually checked out. You know, it wasn't some kind of satire experimentation. Like, these are actually legitimate, you know, people that that were of credible source who conducted these experiments. And so when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy.
The state of allowing your mind to travel away from your body, or that has been characterized by some as an out-of-body experience of this consciousness movement, is one that's characterized by this slow wave delta. So using the word sleep isn't really appropriate in this case, because our minds are not asleep. Our minds are open and awake to experience. Well, welcome back. How was your experience?
Oh, wow. I started out from here, sort of floating up through the roof of this, through the ceiling, and I went up, out through the building, and I was looking at the building from up above. And then it was like I flew over the whole scenery here up to like a cabin that's up on the hill, and I was looking at the cabin from the outside. And then from there, I was out in this space. All of a sudden, I felt this being come close to me, and couldn't really see it. I could just sort of feel this energy.
Subsequently after that, I saw another video by a gentleman named Brian James Cropper, who says he can teach you how to astral project in 4 simple steps, the beginner's crash course.
I'm ready and I'm good to astral project. So I lay down and I do my thing. After a short while, I begin to be able to see through my eyelids, only to find myself losing the orientation, the feeling that I'm laying on my back, and now I'm upright, sitting upright, along with me being able to now see through my eyelids in a climate which is not like Britain. It's much hotter. The smell of spices, the sound of different languages, the humid air, it's hot. It's like I'm on holiday, but it's not a place I'd tend to want to visit, not unless I really needed to. Nothing against the country, it's just, it was like I was cramped into a small part of India which was incredibly busy. But I found myself standing in a it was like the whole place was an alleyway, like a market, but you could stick out both arms and you could reach both sides of the market, kind of thing, you know. And there were people laying down, well, not laying down, they were sitting down on the floor next to their stands. There were people standing up, making sure they were selling things. Bright colors, like I said, the food looked great, it smelled amazing. And as I'm walking through these passageways of these streets, which look like I'm in India, I noticed that not many people can see me, but the ones that can see me wasn't behaving like the people in the market.
So I scoffed at it, and then later that night I gave it a whirl. However, that first night I did not have a full separation. However, I got to what is known as the 3rd stage, the observation stage, where your body and your mind will begin to generate a number of different auditory sensory hallucinations, or safety protocols as I like to call them, within the mind to scare the consciousness back into the body. And it wasn't about 3 days later. That night I felt what is known, I call it the vibrational state, where I vibrated so hard I felt like I was going to shake my house to the ground. And, you know, nobody was able to feel it except me. You know, this is a sensation that I had never, ever felt before in all my entire, you know, at that time, 34 years of existence on this planet. Fast forward 3 days later is when I did finally have a full separation, where brief, maybe 2 minutes, what felt like 30. And I'm here literally having a very brief conversation with my deceased father, who I had not seen or thought of or anything since he passed away of brain cancer in December of 1999. Yeah, he gave me a few bits of information to come back with, and it was an experience that was so profound and so real. Like anybody who would try to, you know, are you sure you're not dreaming or anything like that, I would have immediately gone into a defensive reactionary mode, because this was definitely not a dream. These are experiences and sensations that there's no possible way that it was a dream or some kind of a lucid dream or anything like that. This was something way more real, way more intense, and something that it felt. The bigger takeaway was when I was in this state, I felt a very at-home level of familiarity, like as if that's where I truly belonged, versus going back into my body and then coming out of it and just being like, oh, this it feels fake. It feels like some kind of like a simulation video game or something. When I ended up doing that, there was no intention set on meeting my father. I just wanted to see what a full separation of, from consciousness and the physical was like from what it was described in the videos.
So this was just a couple of times thing?
In the initial part, yeah. And when my father presented himself, it was almost as if he was waiting for me, based on the content of the initial conversation. It was like he was monitoring me and was watching what I was doing, and lo and behold, when I actually had a full successful separation, he was literally there to greet me. Two greatest lies ever told, in my personal opinion, are religion and death. Basically, by design, we have been designed with these, like I call them safety protocols, that they're put in place within the mind. They're in place to test you. For example, if you are a person who scares very easily, or you are of a fear-based nature, meaning like you're just afraid of a lot of stuff, these things will generate in many different ways, and there's a long list of them, and forgive me if I don't get to all of them. But for example, these safety protocols are generated when your consciousness tries to venture outside the physical body. This is where, in turn, I tell people that, divinity only favors the courageous. And with that being said, and we'll talk about the filters in the eyes later when we talk about entheogen induction. But as far as the safety protocols go, you have numerous ones. So some of you may have experienced what would be the vibrational state, where you feel your body is vibrating very intensely, or you are actually experiencing something that you may equivalently compare it to convulsing very heavily. Another one would be sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is another byproduct of moments prior to having a full separation. Another would be hearing clawing at the wall, or your name being whispered, or whispering gibberish or chatter that doesn't make any sense. to include, you also may see shadow people or figures of shadow people walking around moments before you're about to have a separation. What else? You may hear something fall in the room. And the whole point of these auditory sensory, hallucinations that begin to become apparent is they are trying to get your attention, and when they do get your attention, they succeeded, and in turn you would have to start all over again. And there's more. There's a bunch more. This is just off the top of my head. You can hear a cat meow, or a raven, or a bird chirping, a big gunshot going off, or you'll hear what sounds like a 747 engine going off inside of your ear. And again, these are all just precursors that are happening within your own mind to get your attention. And when you can just learn to let it go and have no fear is when shortly after that, and you're in the observation state, you can and enter a state where you'll feel everything that's going on begin to digress and die down, similar to revving on a motorcycle throttle at maximum RPMs and then letting it go and feeling the RPMs go wow. And then that's the sweet spot, is when you get to that point and place your awareness in your breath and feel that sweet spot, is when you would go into what James Cropper talks about is step 4, which would be get up. Just simply get up. If you're having difficulty getting up, you can use other types of imagination or envisioning protocols to help you hoist or pull yourself out of your physical body, like the rope method, which is very famous. Everything operates on thought when you cross over consciously. So when you think of going somewhere is when you just appear there. Like, everybody has always known that the speed of light, was one of the fastest speeds known, until I personally experienced what the speed of thought truly is like. And there's nothing like it. When you have an astral projection, don't try to walk around. There's no gravity. Like, everything literally operates on thought. If you want to go somewhere, think you're already there, and then therefore you are. Start with breathing, learning how to control your breath. Breath works. There's a number of different dudes. If you are familiar with the Wim Hof method, I highly encourage you practice it. Being able to breathe your way into an altered state of consciousness is the easiest way. One of the easiest ways. When you say drugs, if you're talking about people who are smoking methamphetamines and crack cocaine, rocks and stuff like that, yeah, it's going to be a very difficult, because those are what I consider hard drugs. If you're talking about plant medicines, if you are the type of person that is things that'll inhibit you from being able to have a profound experience, smoking a lot of marijuana, that's one of them. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But just the evidence alone between smoking and ingesting it, is more than enough suggesting to me that it was never meant to be smoked. It was meant to be ingested, just the flower itself. The difference between ingesting it and smoking it is called 11-hydroxy metabolite. Just that alone. And the best way I can describe, what smoking does to the brain. So basically, when you smoke marijuana, anybody who's ever smoked out of a clear glass bowl will show that over time it starts to turn brown, dark brown, and it doesn't look very nice with all the resin and stuff. So think of your brain as like a Ferrari motor, and then now think of the fuel injectors that are in your said Ferrari motor as your neuron synapses, within the mind. THC, when smoked, binds and attaches and gunks up your neuron synapses, therefore in turn are gunking up your fuel injectors, not allowing for your Ferrari motor to operate at optimum performance. That's why when you stop smoking marijuana after about 7 or 6 days, your dreams become ultra mega charged. It's because those neuron synapses are beginning to wash themselves clean of these said compounds, and allowing for the brain to function and operate how it's supposed to. And one of the things I try to get people to, try to let go and overall learn to live without is just overall chemical dependencies, from nicotine to THC to caffeine. A lot of things, like if you're taking a bunch of different neural stimulants and stuff like that, it might impede your ability to be able to have a breakthrough experience through the pineal. A lot of sugar conversion turns into fat, and then people start getting, having type 2 diabetes, is definitely, if you have type 2 diabetes, you have to start taking insulin, you know, and you have to start taking other kinds of medications as well. And in turn, yeah, sugar is not super great for the body. These are things that you need to learn to do and take in moderation. One of the other things I teach people and I express very heavily is fasting. Fasting does amazing things for the body, especially when doing it correct. I mean, overall fitness, comparably to when I was a paratrooper, I'm obviously not, you know, nowhere near to that level. But considering how many, you know, I've had a few surgeries and I've had a bunch of dings, especially from being in, you know, service in the military. All things considered, I think I'm doing physically pretty good. So very basic and very simple. You have this, this meridian pool of energy. Each one has a specific spot attached to a particular organ, to include, you know, part of the body. And we'll start from the bottom up. You'll have the root chakra, which is the chakra of survival, and it is blocked by fear. And then going up is the sacral chakra, which is the chakra of pleasure, and it is blocked by guilt. And then the solar plexus chakra, which is the chakra of willpower, and it is blocked by shame. Heart is the chakra of love, and it is blocked by grief. Throat chakra is the chakra of truth, and it is blocked by lies, more so the lies that we tell ourselves. And the sixth chakra, or the Ajna chakra, third eye chakra, is the chakra of insight, and it is blocked by the illusion of separation. And then the crown chakra is the chakra of divine connection, you know, that energy connection to the divine. And it is blocked by earthly attachments. And earthly attachments can be a very broad thing. You know, if you're attached to your children, your wife, your spouse, your husband, your, you know, money, cars, if you're attached to these things that you cannot be without, those are the things in turns you will be, you know, you're going to have to learn to just let these things go. And it sounds worse than it is. We are one.
Now look into the camera and say that creepier.
We are one.